स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the study of Great Master Sri Ramakrishna. Having thus had the direct experience of non-duality, the Master's mind was filled with unbounded Catholicity. He had now an extraordinary sympathy for all the religious communities which taught that the aim of human life was the realization of God. But he did not realize at first that this Catholicity and universal sympathy were his discoveries, and that no aspirant, not even the foremost of them, in the past could attain them as fully as he. He came to be acquainted with this fact only gradually in the course of his contact with the wise sadhakas belonging to the various religious communities at the Kali temple, at Dakshineshwar, and at other well-known places of pilgrimage. But thenceforward, he could not stand intolerance and exclusiveness in religious matters, and he tried in all ways to correct the narrow outlook. We can clearly understand from a contemporary event how the establishment in the non-dual consciousness had brought the Master's mind to a state of extreme liberality. The Master, we have seen, was ill for a few months after he had reached the zenith of his practice and non-dual mood. The event under reference came to pass when he had just recovered. About that time, an ardent spiritual aspirant named Govinda Rai, who must have been in search of God for a long time, arrived at Dakshineshwar. Hriday told us that he was a Kshatriya by birth. He was perhaps learned in Persian and Arabic. Having studied various religious doctrines and come in contact with different religious communities, he was at last attracted by the liberal doctrine of Islam and was formally initiated into it. Govinda, thirsting for truth, accepted the Islamic faith, but we cannot say how far he followed its social manners and customs. But since he became initiated, he, we were told, engaged himself ardently in the reading of the Quran and in the religious practices prescribed by that scripture. Govinda was an ardent lover of God. The method of worshipping God according to the teaching and mental attitude prevalent amongst the Sufis, followers of the sect of Islam, seems to have captivated his mind. For he now became engaged day and night in practicing devotional modes like the dervishes, the devotees belonging to that sect. Somehow or other, Govinda now came to the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar and began to spend his time there with his seat spread under the peaceful shade of the Panchavati, which he thought was a place favorable to religious practices. Just like Hindu sannyasins, Muslim fakirs too were welcome at Rasamani's Kali temple. And the hospitality of the temple was equally accorded to both of them. Therefore, while staying there, Govinda had not to go round for alms. He spent his days joyfully in spiritual practices according to the teachings of his religion. The master was attracted towards the devout Govinda, and happening to converse with him, was charmed with Govinda's sincere faith and his love for God. Thus was the master's mind now attracted towards the Islamic religion. This also, thought he, is a path to the realization of God. The sportive mother, the source of infinite Leela, has been blessing many people with the attainment of her lotus feet through this path also. I must see how people taking refuge in her are led along this path to the fulfillment of their spiritual aspirations. I shall be initiated by Govinda and shall engage myself in the practice of that spiritual mode. Thought was immediately followed by action. The master expressed his desire to Govinda and became initiated. He engaged himself in practicing Islam according to its prescribed rules. The master said, I then repeated the holy syllable, Allah, with great devotion, wore clothes like the Muslims, said namaz thrice daily, and felt disinclined even to see Hindu deities, not to speak of saluting them. Inasmuch as the Hindu mode of thought vanished altogether from my mind, I spent 3 days in the mode and had the full realization of the result of the practices according to that faith. At the time of practicing Islam, the master at first had the vision of an effulgent, impressive personage with a long beard. Afterwards, he attained the knowledge of the all-pervading Brahman with attributes, and then merged finally in the attributes of Brahman, the Absolute. At the time of practicing Islam, the master wanted, according to Hriday, to take Muslim type of food. It was Mathu's solicitous request alone that made him refrain from doing so, knowing that the childlike master would not abstain from it if that desire of his were not at least partially fulfilled. Mathur had a cook bought under whose instruction a Brahmin cook prepared food for the master in the Muslim style. The master did not even once enter the inner courtyard of the Kali temple while practicing Islam, but remained in the mansion of Mathur situated outside. From the event mentioned above, it becomes clear how sympathetic the master's mind became towards other religious communities after he had attained perfection in the Vedantic discipline. It also became clear how, by having faith in the Vedantic knowledge alone, the Hindus and the Mohammedans of India may become sympathetic towards one another and develop a brotherly feeling. Otherwise, as the master used to say, there is, as it were, a mountain of difference between these two religions. Their thoughts and faiths, actions and behavior have remained quite unintelligible to each other in spite of their living together for so long a time. Does the practice of Islam by Master, the divine incarnation of the age, indicate that the said difference would come someday disappear and both the Hindus and Muslims would embrace one another in love? As a result of his being established in the plane of Nirvikalpa consciousness, the memory of non-duality used to be suddenly awakened in him, and his mind would get merged in the Absolute, even at the slightest suggestion received from sights and persons coming strictly within the bounds of the plane of duality. We saw how that state was brought on him by the association of ideas, even without his desiring it. It is therefore superfluous to to add that he could attain at any moment to that plane by a mere wish, it will be clear from the following incidents, small though they may be, how deep and wide his non-dual mood was and how his mind had a natural attraction for it. The gardeners found it inconvenient to sow kitchen vegetables in this spacious temple garden at Dakshineshwar when it became covered with grass in the rainy season. Therefore, grass cutters were allowed to cut and take away the grass from there. One day, having got permission to take away grass without paying any price for it, an old grass cutter began to cut grass and bundle it and was about to take it to the market for sale. The master saw that the old man had cut so much grass out of avarice that it was beyond his power to carry or even lift up that load of grass. But the indigent grass cutter refused to acknowledge it, and in spite of his repeated efforts in various ways to lift that big bundle upon his head, he failed miserably. While looking at it, the master was inspired with spiritual emotion and thought, "Ah, the self, the knowledge infinite abides within. You are and we are all the Parabrahma Swarupa. That infinite knowledge abides within all of us. And yet so much foolishness and ignorance without." Within, Master could see that Atman, the non-dual consciousness in that person. But what a foolishness and ignorance outside. Then exclaiming, "O Rama, inscrutable is thy play," he entered into ecstasy. Seeing the foolishness, seeing the ignorance, seeing the avidya, Ramakrishna saw that within all of us are having that infinite knowledge, infinite joy, infinite bliss, existence, everything, all powerful. The Paramatman within ourselves, but externally covering it, ourselves with this ignorance, desire, avidya, we are suffering so much, we are worrying so much of suffering everywhere. So Ramakrishna, seeing this irony, the contrast, while looking at that person, the master was inspired with spiritual emotion and thought, "Ah, the self, the Atman, the knowledge infinite abides within. And yet so much of foolishness and ignorance without means outside." Then exclaiming, "O Rama, inscrutable is thy play," he entered into ecstasy. So we have to again go through that incident of that old man. We can see here the characters are shown in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, not to point at other people who are committing mistakes. But these wonderful characters have been shown in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. He brings in all these characters like Hriday Ram, then Haladari, then in future you will be getting so many other people like that. So all that characters are meant to help me. I have to take up individually, every one of us, not to find fault in other people. But is this character inside me, within me? Am I behaving like this? So how can I overcome that? How can I give up my foolishness? How can I identify with the Atman within? So Ramakrishna is seeing, he could see the Atman shining within, but we cover ourselves. We are doing that. We ourselves, all of us, with the desire, we have covered that knowledge with the veil of ignorance, and we are suffering and suffering and suffering. All the suffering in the world is due to this ignorance, this ego. But we are not ready to give up that. Again, had to bring in the birds of Duryodhana when Lord Krishna asked him to give him the land, at least little plot of land to Pandavas so that there would be no war. He wanted to stop the war at any cost. So at that time, Duryodhana repeated to Krishna, "Oh Krishna, I know what is dharma, I cannot practice it. I know what is adharma, unrighteousness, but I cannot give it up." So likewise, we should read all these things and see our own ignorance, our own avidya, how we are covering ourselves with desires, ego, and then not only we are troubling ourselves, we are troubling others too. So we will go through that again so that we can search that character in ourselves and give up that, identify ourselves with the Atman, meditate on that Paramatma Swarupa, that infinite knowledge, Sat Chit Ananda. So the gardeners found it inconvenient to sow kitchen vegetables in the spacious temple garden at Dakshineshwar. When it became covered with grass in the rainy season, therefore grass cutters were allowed to cut and take away the grass from there. One day, having got permission to take away grass without paying any price for it, an old grass cutter began to cut grass and bundle it and was about to take it to the market for sale. The master saw that the old man had cut so much of grass out of avarice that it was beyond his power to carry or even lift up that load of grass. But the indigent grass cutter refused to acknowledge it. And in spite of his repeated efforts in various ways to lift that big bundle upon his head, he failed miserably. While looking at it, the master was inspired with spiritual emotions and thought, "Ah, the self, the Atman, the knowledge infinite, Paramatma Swarupa, Parabrahma Swarupa is within. Infinite knowledge is there, infinite bliss is there. How we have covered ourselves with this. We should not blame Maya. We should not blame anybody. Because it is you, it is me who have covered it with this knowledge. Even now, you have the authority, you have the discrimination, you have the viveka within you. The Lord has given you that viveka. If we use it, we can cut asunder all these bondages, the Maya, and become that infinite soul, but we do not want it. What an irony, what an irony. That's why Swami Vivekananda has written in the Aratrikam, the Arati evening Arati song of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Nowhere can you find the name of Ramakrishna there. What is the first line which starts with Khandana, Bhava Bandhana? So, remover, cutting asunder, who is Khandana, Bhava Bandhana, the worldly bondages. Ramakrishna is the one who is cutting all these worldly bondages which we are ourselves, binding it ourselves. We are doing that and we'll blame everybody else. We'll blame God, we'll blame nature, we'll blame the world. But on the contrary, we are ourselves binding with more and more and more rope and bondages and blaming everybody in the world. We have the power to cut asunder, to remove everything bondages. It is just like the example given of the silk worm. We know how the silk thread is prepared. So the silkworm, it eats that special plant and it goes on after eating that leaf. It will go on making that, bringing out it that thread-like thing and covering it with that pupa, the silken pupa. So then it will be there, the caterpillar will be there inside. Anytime it has created that pupa, the covering, the silken thread, it has covered it, it was made that beautiful house for within to live. So anytime it has made it, it can cut asunder and come out but it is so much enamored by its own creation. It doesn't want to come out. Anytime it can come out. Anytime it can be free. It has created that pupa around it. Any time it can cut it and come out. But it is so enamored, it is so attached to that, it doesn't want to come out. It stays there. Then this human being comes with his greed to prepare the silken cloth. He puts that in the hot water and he removes that thread, and this worm is dead. It dies, it gives up its life. Anytime it can cut those things and come out because it has created it. Likewise, we create all these bondages, we create all the problems. We can come out of it. We are the creator of the problems and all the things in this world. We have all the ability to come out any time out of it. But we don't put in the effort at all because we are so enamored, we are so much attached to this creation of ours, which we ourselves have done. And we blame all the planets, Navagrahas, the stars, and every people around us. We blame the teacher, we blame the parents, we blame the brothers and sisters, we blame the family, we blame the lineage, we blame the husband, we blame the wife, we blame the children, but we never blame ourselves. It is always to point fingers towards us. Just like Holy Mother tells, my dear child, if you want peace of mind, do not find fault in others. Rather, look at your own fault. Try to remove your own fault. So that can be seen here. So nicely, Sri Ramakrishna is seeing the irony, the contrast, and exclaiming, but that indigent grass cutter, in various ways, he refused to acknowledge his greed, his avarice, in spite of his repeated efforts in various ways to lift that big bundle upon his head. He failed miserably. While looking at it, the master was inspired. Even from that failure, Ramakrishna would go to Samadhi. It inspired him with spiritual emotions and thought, the self, the Atman, the Paramatman, the knowledge infinite abides within, and yet so much foolishness and ignorance without, thus exclaiming, O Rama, inscrutable is thy play. He entered into ecstasy. One day at Dakshineshwar, the master saw a butterfly flying with a tiny stick stuck into its tail. A butterfly flying with a tiny stick stuck into its tail. Ramakrishna was at first pained to think that some naughty urchin had done it. But the next moment he was inspired and burst into laughter, saying, O Rama, thou hast brought thyself to this plight. So it is the Lord who has done this, the Atmaswarupa only, to this Atmaswarupa. So the Lord himself is suffering. The Lord himself has done it. So looking at that from the Vedantic perspective, he was in the beginning, when he thought like us, he was pained to think that some naughty urchin has done it. But the next moment he was inspired and burst into laughter, saying, O Lord, O Rama, thou hast brought thyself to this plight. At one time, a particular spot of the garden of the Kali temple was covered with newly grown durva grass. We all know we use the durva grass for the puja. It's a very favorite of Lord Ganesha. We use the durva grass. So that Kali temple garden was covered with newly grown durva grass and was beautiful to look at it. So it is so sacred and it has so many medicinal properties. that in the Vedas there is one sukta itself called Durva Suktam. So now this Durva grass, tender Durva grass covered a particular spot of the garden in Kali temple and was beautiful to look at it. While he was looking at it, Ramakrishna transcended the normal consciousness and he was feeling identified with that spot. When Sri Ramakrishna was looking at that grass, beautiful green grass of Durva, and started identifying, because it is also living. The grass is also living being and beautiful green color. It was very beautiful to look at it. While Ramakrishna was looking at it, the master, that is Ramakrishna, transcended the normal consciousness and was feeling identified with that spot. When a man just happened to walk across the field, a man started walking on that grass. At this, the master became very restless, feeling unbearable pain in his chest. Mentioning that event, he said to us later, I then felt just that kind of pain which is felt when anybody tramples on one's chest. That state of bhava samadhi is very, very painful. Although I had it only for 6 hours, still it became quite unbearable. So by this, we have to note that whatever trouble, knowingly or unknowingly, we give to others, any living being, either plants or animals or human beings, it directly reaches the Lord. Here, because Sri Ramakrishna had identified himself that transcendental plane, the master transcended the normal consciousness and was feeling identified with the spot, with the Lord. So when the man trampled on that grass, Ramakrishna could feel restless, feeling unbearable pain in his chest. Mentioning that event, he said to us later, I then felt that kind of pain which is felt when anybody tramples on one's chest, the state of bhava samadhi is very painful. Although I had it only for 6 hours, still it became quite unbearable. So whatever, we have to be very careful in our words, deeds and thoughts. Are we hurting anybody deliberately? Otherwise, it directly reaches the God. On the contrary, we try to do the service, do good to people, to animals, to plants, then that directly reaches God. So every moment you can turn it into worship by serving, by thinking of the Lord and make our life blissful. On the contrary, we can also turn others' life into hell and make our own life into hell. So it is in our hand, we can decide it. One day, the master while in bhava samadhi was gazing towards the Ganga, standing at the spacious ghat with an open portico. 2 boats were at anchor at the ghat, and the boatmen were quarreling over some matter. The quarrel became gradually bitter, and the stronger man gave a severe slap on the back of the weaker one. At that, the master cried out suddenly in pain. The beating was given to the weaker man there. The boatmen were fighting. One day, while master was in bhava samadhi, was gazing towards the Ganga, standing on the spacious ghat with an open portico. The 2 boats were at anchor at the ghat, and the boatmen were quarreling over some matter. The quarrel became gradually bitter, and the stronger man gave a severe slap on the back of the weaker one. And at that, the master cried out suddenly in pain. The master suddenly cried out in pain. Hriday heard it from the Kali temple, went there quickly, and saw that the master's back, where that man that weaker man was hit by another boatman. So the pain, the mark of the pain, the mark of the beating was manifested on the back of Sri Ramakrishna. The quarrel became gradually bitter, and the stronger man gave a severe slap on the back of the weaker one. At that, the master cried out suddenly in pain. Hriday heard it from the Kali temple and went there quickly and saw the master's back and that had become red and swollen. Impatient with anger, Hriday said repeatedly, "Mama, uncle, uncle, show me that man. Show me that man who has beaten you. I will tear off his head." Afterwards, when the master had calmed down a little, come down from the transcendental play of that Bhava Samadhi, Hriday was astonished to hear of the event and thought, is it ever possible? Is it ever possible that somebody is beaten and the pain and the mark of the beating is expressed on the back of Sri Ramakrishna? So Ramakrishna in that higher state could feel every pain, every pleasure of every living being. So in this way, we have seen earlier when that butterfly was flying with that stick stuck into its tail, when somebody, a boy, the children, you can see that they will be very mischievous. So they will do all those things. Who is the one who is in that child who did this naughty thing? The Lord. Who is the one who is suffering in the butterfly? The Lord. So thinking at those things, you can see here, is it ever possible? So Ramakrishna is feeling the pain, the pleasure and everything of all the living beings. So that's why you may be knowing that in India there is a concept called, the Lord is called as Ranganatha. Ranga means the stage, the drama stage. The whole world is a stage, Ranga Mantapa. But the Leela, the whole universe is nothing but the stage of the Lord, where the Lord is performing this beautiful drama, Leela, the play. And who are all the people, who are all the different roles that is being played, all the character in every person? Every role is played by that one Lord. So that's why it's called Ranganatha, the Lord of the stage, this Kshetra, the Lord Ranga. He is the Lord. He is playing in every living being. He is taking the role of everybody. Just like the master of the drama company, sometimes will be taking the role of the beggar, sometimes the role of the king, sometimes the role of the poor man. So that is only one directional. But here the Lord, the owner of this company, this universe, this whole creation, who is the one who is playing the role in everybody, in the blind, in the lame, in the foolish, in the most intelligent, in the bad, in the criminal, in the accused, in the person who is suffering. The role, everything is played by the same Lord. Whom will you blame? Whom will you entertain? So Ramakrishna could feel everything. So is it ever possible? Girish Chandra Ghosh had heard of the event from the master's lips and narrated it to us. Innumerable events of this nature regarding the master may be mentioned, but we refrain from doing so to avoid superfluity. So now we are going to the next chapter. So many good things were discussed, so many good events were discussed, so beautiful things we could hear. So now we are going to the next phase. The master's visit to his native village. So we all know what is the native village. I think we have to have a quiz competition to all the devotees who are participating here so that they will remember all the places, all the events. So if you have a regular quiz, I think it would be better. Then you will go and read those things, or you will not forget. You will jot it down, you will note it down. Otherwise, it will be just storytelling like Harikatha, you will hear and forget. So the master's visit to his native village. What is his native village? Amarpukura. The master suffered for 6 months, as already stated, and when he was cured of his ailment, that is the dysentery, blood dysentery, towards the close of that period, it was noticed that his mind, in place of constantly tending towards non-duality, had got habituated to dwell in the state of bhava mukha, wherein multiplicity and non-duality, dvaita and advaita, are simultaneously apprehended. So he could see both the duality and the non-duality, dvaita and advaita, where he could dwell in the state of bhava mukha. Now you can understand, in so many places we have come to understand what is bhava mukha, threshold. So he could dwell on both these plane, that is non-duality and also duality. He got habituated to dwell in the state of bhavamukha, wherein multiplicity is the duality and no multiplicity, that is non-duality, dvaita, advaita, are simultaneously apprehended. But his body was not as strong and healthy as before, because he has undergone so much of austerities and spiritual practices for 12 years. So his body was not as healthy as before, and it was feared that his dysentery might recur for want of pure drinking water when the waters of the Ganga became saline. Because from this place, Calcutta, it is just 120 kilometers to the sea, the Bay of Bengal, the sea. So what happens is, every day we can see that if you go to Ganga there in Belur Math, the water from the sea will flow backwards. And when the power of the current of the Ganga, fresh water, Ganga water becomes more, it will start flowing towards the sea. In a day, we can see that once or twice. Sometimes when the power of the flow of sea backwards and the flow of Ganga flowing towards the sea, when the force become equal, then they rise up, the water rises up. There'll be no movement at all. It will be just like a still swimming pool. Then the water level rises up. Then it is very easy to swim. So we used to go to, during that Belur Math, Ganga Puja and other time, when that happens, when the water becomes still and comes up, when the puja is going on, we swim in the Ganga, and because there is no current, otherwise the current will drag you. Whatever force you use, if you start swimming here, it will be dragging you somewhere else with great difficulty, or you have to come back to the place where you started to swim. So, but during this period, when both the currents become equal, then it comes up. So it will be static water. Then we can swim easily. So we started swimming and went to half of the Ganga. Some could go to the other side, but Belur Math authorities had prohibited not to do so. So we just went to the center of the Ganga and came back, and there was a puja happening to Ganga Mother. Ganga puja will happen, the birth of Ganga. With the use of Ganga water itself, they will be doing puja of Ganga water. Ganga is worshipped with Ganga water. So Ganga, Jole Ganga Puja, that is the usage in Bengali. Ganga Jole Ganga Puja. So how can you worship the Lord? We can worship the Lord only with the things of the universe which belongs to the Lord. What do you have to worship other than the things of the Lord, you think that all these things is yours, that you are giving it to the Lord, the money, the things, all those things, Panchamrita Snana, the water, everything belongs to the Lord. So you are giving it back to the Lord. There is a saying in one of the South Indian languages that the water of the lake pond, you are pouring it back to the water of the pond or the lake. You are pouring the water of the lake or the pond back into the lake or the pond. Likewise, during that Ganga Puja, you can see when that becomes equal, then you could swim, go there. So at that time, the seawater which comes back, it is salty, lot of saline in it. And now, during this period, if you drink that water, at the time there was no water purification unit, and also the Ganga water has more iron content. So if you don't filter it, if you don't purify it, and then drink that, it may cause so many problems during that period. So Ganga water became saline during the rainy season. It was therefore settled that he should go to Kamarpukur, his birthplace, for a few months. Accordingly, arrangements were made for his proposed change for the master in 1867. The devout Jagadamba Dasi, wife of Mathur Babu, knew that master's household was ever poor, like that of Lord Shiva. So the condition there in master's household, they were in poverty. So she made arrangements with much care about all the necessary articles, so that father, that is Sri Ramakrishna Baba, might not have inconvenience of any kind. The master then started at an auspicious moment. Hriday and the Bhairavi Brahmani. Bhairavi Brahmani was the teacher of Vaishnava disciplines and the Tantric disciplines. And Hriday, they accompanied Sri Ramakrishna to Kamarpukur. But his aged mother stuck to her previous resolve of living near the Ganga and stayed back at Dakshineshwar under Mathur's care. So Mother Chandramani Devi, who was living there in Dakshineshwar, she decided not to go back to Kamarpukur, because one by one people were dying, all her children, all her near and dear ones. So she was getting renunciation. She was thinking much on God, and she wanted to give up everything. Now even that child of hers, Ramakrishna, is going to Kamarpukur. She didn't accompany, because she had taken the vow, the resolve, that she will die on the bank of Ganga, and she will not go anywhere other than the bank of Ganga. So that was the resolve she had taken. So now that's why she didn't accompany that group, though there was all the facility to go to her own native place, Kamarpukur, because her mind was now dwelling on God. So she didn't want to go back. Now, the master then started at an auspicious moment. Hriday and Bhairavi Brahmani accompanied him, but his aged mother Chandramani Devi stuck to her previous resolve, the vrata of living near the Ganga. She had made the sankalpa that she will live near Ganga, will not go until now she dies. She didn't want to go anywhere. So she had made that resolve of living near the Ganga and stayed back at Dakshineshwar under Mathur's care. The master had not come to Kamarpukur for the past 8 years. Therefore, his friends and relatives, it is needless to add, were eager to see him. And it needs no mention that there were special reasons for it. For many strange rumors about him had reached their ears from time to time. Now people will start talking so many things. So many rumors had come to Kamarpukur about Ramakrishna, was undergoing so much of special spiritual practices there in Dakshineshwar. So naturally, when people cannot understand as such, we have the tendency to spread rumors. It is the nature of human beings. Just go on talking because the tongue doesn't have any bones, you see. It goes on and on, spreading news, talking ill of others. So, what were all the rumors coming to Kamarpukur about Ramakrishna, who was in Calcutta on the bank of Ganga in Dakshineshwar, that Sri Ramakrishna was always, they had heard that about Sri Ramakrishna that he was always crying, Hari, Hari, in a woman's dress, that he had become a monk. It's all put together. He was wearing woman's dress. He was crying, Hari, Hari. Then he took up the monkhood. He became a monk. That he was repeating Allah, Allah continuously and was thus behaving in many strange ways. But as soon as the master, Ramakrishna, was in their midst, they all found how baseless were the rumors for. They found that he was just his old self, the same amiability, the same loving merriment, the same austere truthfulness, the same profound religious sensibility, and the same surge of overwhelming emotions at the name of the Lord, Hari. All these old qualities of his were seen in him in the fullest measures as before. The only change they found in him was that his body and mind were glowing. His body and mind were glowing with such an indescribable heavenly effulgence that they felt a great hesitation to appear before him suddenly or to broach worldly topics when he did not start them himself. Again, they all felt that their worldly anxieties disappeared. Their worldly anxieties disappeared into thin air when they were in his presence, and that instead there flowed in their hearts a serene and tranquil current of bliss and peace. Now, just the presence of Sri Ramakrishna, they could feel joy. They felt that their worldly anxieties disappeared into thin air when they were in his presence, and that instead there flowed in their hearts a serene and tranquil current of bliss and peace. Besides, when they were away from him, when they were away from Sri Ramakrishna, they experienced a strong, inexpressible desire to go to him once more. If they were in his presence, they used to feel infinite peace, infinite bliss. All their sorrows, worries will go away. But when they would go away from him, they would experience a strong, inexpressible desire to go to him once more. Thus, there was an incessant flow of bliss in that poor family when they had him in their midst after so long a time. And in order to fill the cup of happiness to the brim, a messenger was sent under the instruction of the ladies to Jairambati, the village of Master's father-in-law, to bring his wife. The master knew it, but did not express either approval or disapproval. The family members sent word to bring Mother Sharda Devi from Jairambati to Kamarpukur. But Ramakrishna, when he heard this news, he never approved or disapproved. He did not express either approval or disapproval. Hitherto, his wife had met him only once after their marriage. He had met his wife only once after the marriage. This was when, according to the custom of the family, the master was taken to Jairambati on one occasion when she was 7 years of age. But she was then too young to understand what marriage meant. Therefore, the only thing regarding the event that was retained in her memory was that when the master came to her father's house with Hriday, the latter bought with him a good many lotus flowers from somewhere, sought Mother Sharda Devi out, the small child, from a secluded part of the house where she had hidden herself, and worshipped her feet with those flowers as she shrank into herself out of bashfulness. 6 years after this event, she was taken to Kamarpukur in her 13th year. Now, Mother Sharda Devi is 13-year-old. So now she has come to Kamarpukur to see Ramakrishna. This time she spent a month there, but she had not the good fortune then to see either the master or her mother-in-law, as both of them were away at Dakshineshwar. She came again 6 months later to her father-in-law's house for a stay of 1.5 months, but could not see either of them for the same reason. It was 3 or 4 months after her return from their visit to her father-in-law's house that news arrived about the master's coming to Kamarpukur and about her being summoned to join him there. She had reached her 14th year, some 6 or 7 months before this event. Therefore, this was practically her first real meeting with her husband after her marriage. So this was practically the first meeting because she is now big enough to understand what is marriage, who is husband. Then when she was married, she was just 5 years old. Only now she could know that Ramakrishna has come, she is married. Therefore, this was practically her first real meeting with her husband after her marriage. It seems that the master stayed at Kamarpukur for 6 or 7 months on this occasion. The friends of his early days and all the men and women of the village known to him mixed with him as before and tried to make him happy. The master too was very much pleased to see them after such a long time. In mingling with men and women of Kamarpukur, who were taken up with the affairs of their circumscribed worldly lives, the master felt a joy similar to what a great thinker and scholar feels when, during their leisure after hard toil, they join children in their aimless and meaningless amusement. He, however, strongly felt that they should become conscious of the transitoriness of worldly lives. Now, I'll go through that again. The master felt a joy similar to what great thinkers and scholars feel when during their leisure, when he mixed with all these people of his village, in their leisures after hard toil, they joined children in their aimless and meaningless amusement. But Sri Ramakrishna, however, strongly felt that these people of Kamarpukur, the village people, should become conscious of the transitoriness of this life, and although living in the world, should gradually attain self-control and learn to depend upon God in all matters. So this was what Sri Ramakrishna was feeling when he started mingling with the people of the village Kamarpukur. What was that? We can also take it for ourselves. We are immersed in this life, in this world. So Ramakrishna is feeling, however, strongly felt that the people of this village Kamarpukur should become conscious of the transitoriness of this life, and although living in the world, should gradually attain self-control and learn to depend on God in all matters. We infer this from the manner in which he always taught. So why did Shardanandaji Maharaj, or why is Shardanandaji Maharaj inferring that? Why is he feeling so? Why is he writing this? So now he's giving the answer. We infer this from the manner in which he always taught us the very same things through play and fun, mirth and merriment. So whatever his teachings to those people, to all the person who would approach him, the village of Kamarpukur or anybody devotees coming to him, the manner in which he always taught us the very same things through play and fun, through stories, through jokes, through mimicry, everything. He taught the same thing through his play and fun, mirth and merriment. On finding that even while living in the little world of the little village, some had made unexpected progress in spiritual life, he was struck with wonder at that inconceivable glory of God. He told us many times of an event to illustrate this. So he was surprised when he saw, even in the midst of this village, where there was no chance, where there was less chance, that some people had made tremendous spiritual progress. So he was struck with wonder at the inconceivable glory of God when he saw some people made unexpected progress in spiritual life. The master said one day during that period, he was resting in his room after his midday meal. Some ladies, his neighbors, came to see him, sat near him, and became engaged in spiritual conversation with him. The master suddenly went into an ecstasy and felt that he was a fish, joyfully swimming and sporting, sometimes coming to the surface and sometimes sinking deep, all in the ocean of existence, knowledge, bliss. This is also one way of meditation in Vedanta. The Parabrahma Swarupa Satchit Ananda is assumed to be the ocean, and we, the Jivatman, we, the spiritual aspirants, are assumed to be the fish. And we go on swimming in that infinite ocean of Satchit Ananda, sometimes coming up, sometimes going deep. So there's also one state of meditation in Vedanta. Now, in Samadhi, he went into a very high state. Master suddenly went into an ecstasy and felt that he was a fish, joyfully swimming and sporting, sometimes coming to the surface and sometimes sinking deep, all in the ocean of Satchit Ananda, infinite existence, knowledge, and bliss. The master used to fall into such ecstasy very often while talking with others. Therefore, not at all mindful of it, the ladies expressed their own opinions, which created a lot of noise. One of the ladies there in that group forbade the other ladies who were boisterous and talking loudly, making noise. One of the ladies asked them not to do so, forbade the others to do so, and asked them to be quiet till the ecstasy of Sri Ramakrishna came to an end. She said, he has now become, she could feel, though Ramakrishna was having that experience within the Samadhi, in that ecstasy, he was feeling that he was a fish swimming in the boundless infinite ocean of Satchit Ananda, that is Parabrahma Swarupa. So she could feel it, she could understand it. And asking all the other ladies forbade them to make noise or speak, to be quiet, because she was telling one of the company, that is one of the ladies, stopped them to make noise and be quiet till his ecstasy came to an end. She said, he has now become a fish. Sri Ramakrishna has now become a fish and is swimming in the sea of existence, knowledge, and bliss. If you make noise, the bliss of his will be interrupted. Although many of them did not then believe in our words, all remained quiet. Nobody believed. How could she understand what is happening in the mind of Sri Ramakrishna or what is happening in the ecstasy of Sri Ramakrishna? But that lady was so much spiritually progressed She could understand. She's telling them, now Sri Ramakrishna has become like a fish. So this itself will prove that the ecstasy and the spiritual progress is not only for the avatar Purushas, it's not only for the high, very spiritual beings, saints. It is meant for everybody, all of us, all of you, every common man. It is the birthright. The realization of God, the spiritual progress is the birthright of every living being. So all of you too, if you cut these bondages of the worldly enjoyments, shackles, if you cut that asunder and think on God, meditate on God, do spiritual practices, do karma yoga, satsanga, bhajans, you too can grow forward, you too can go forward in spiritual life and enjoy all these things. Now, that lady is telling, he has become now, Ramakrishna has become a fish and is swimming in the sea of existence, knowledge, bliss. If you make noise, that bliss of his will be interrupted. Although many of them did not then believe in her words, all remained quiet. When he came down from that state and was asked about his experiences, some of the other ladies wanted to confirm. When he came back from that ecstasy, when some of them asked him, questioned him about his experience, Sri Ramakrishna said, yes, what she said is true. How strange. How could she know it? It seems to us the daily rounds of men and women of the village of Kamarpukur now appear new to master to great extent. He now felt like a man who has returned home from a far-off place, to whom every person and object of the village appeared to be new. For although the master had been away from the place of his birth for a short period of 8 years, only a violent storm of spiritual strivings had raged in his heart during that period and produced a radical change in him. For during those 8 years, he had forgotten himself, forgotten the world, and ascended far beyond the bounds of time and space. But while descending from there, he came transfigured with the knowledge that Brahman, the Lord, Paramatman, existed in all beings. So now he's a transformed person. Though there are many people, known and unknown, coming to him there, now he could see that Lord within and without, everybody. And every one of the being who is coming to him, he could see the Lord, the Parabrahma. What was his experience now? With his eyes open, he could see everywhere the Lord. But while descending from the higher plane of consciousness, he was transfigured with the knowledge that Brahman, that is the Lord, Paramatman consciousness, existed in all beings. He could see it with his open eyes, the consciousness in every living being. And he found all persons, he found all the people coming to him, and everybody, all persons and things mellowed by an extraordinary new light. There was light and light everywhere. So it was not just like us, we see human beings here. Ordinarily, we see just Rama, Krishna, that mother, this mother, that person, this person. We differentiate. The duality, the multiplicity is seen. But now Sri Ramakrishna has experienced that non-duality coming down. He's seeing that one divine consciousness in everything. He's seeing that person, Rama. He's seeing this person, another person. But within and without, he could see only that Paramatman, the consciousness, the Lord himself. So he was a transfigured man with the knowledge that Brahman existed in all beings, and he found all persons and things. Sri Ramakrishna found all persons and things mellowed by an extraordinary new light. It is well known in philosophy that our consciousness of time and the measurement of its duration arises from the succession of our mental events. It is well known in philosophy, in the scriptures, it is discussed that our consciousness of time, our idea of time, and the measurement of its and the measurement of its duration arises from the succession of our mental events. Therefore, a short period during which a great many thoughts rise and sink in our minds appear to us to be very long. One is astonished to think what tumultuous wave of thoughts and emotions surged in the master's mind during this period. Is it therefore surprising that the said period should appear to him to be an age? So the time duration varies. When you are in different plane of consciousness, we always discuss that when you are very happy, especially on Sundays, the time flows very quick. But on a working day, weekday, how much ever you spend, how much ever you work, the time doesn't go on at all. It is a drudgery. You will be in pain. When will this be over? When will the office or the work will be over? I have to rush back to my house. But we want that Sunday and other holidays and festival days should extend more and more. But it gets quickly over. So your concept of time varies according to the thoughts you are in. So here Sharadanandaji Maharaj is explaining about Sri Ramakrishna. One is astonished to think what tumultuous waves of thoughts and emotions surged in the master's mind during this period. A short period during which a great many thoughts rise and sink. It is well known in philosophy that our consciousness of time and the measurement of its duration arises from the succession of our mental events. Therefore, a short period during which a great many thoughts rise and sink in our minds appear to us to be very, very long. One is astonished to think what tumultuous waves of thoughts and emotions surged in the master's mind during this period. Is it therefore surprising that the said period should appear to him to be an age? One is astonished to think of the wonderful relation of affection which the master had established with all the people of Kamarpukur. So, with what relation? What was his idea? How he established with all the people in Kamarpukur? So one was astonished. Sharadanandaji Maharaj writes, to think of the wonderful relation of affection which the master had established with all the people of Kamarpukur, the men and women of all the families, including those of the Lahas, the Brahmanas, the blacksmiths, the carpenters, the gold merchants, and others were all bound to him, whether men of high caste or low caste or middle caste, whatever, no distinction. Everybody are the same to him. The men and women of all families, including those of the Lahas, the Brahmanas, the blacksmiths, the carpenters, the gold merchants, and the others were all bound to him in a relation of reverential love. We were charmed to hear the master speak on many occasions with great pleasure about the devotion and affection of a large number of men and women for him. Among them were a simple-hearted and devout Prasanna, one lady called Prasanna, the widowed sister of Dharmadas Laha. Lahas are the businessmen. So, that lady Prasanna, the simple-hearted, the devout Prasanna, the widowed sister of Dharmadas Laha, the master's friend Gaya Vishnu Laha, the son of Dharmadasa, Srinivasa Shankari of sincere faith, the devout ladies of the Pine family, and the master's Bhiksha Mata, who had given him the first Bhiksha, Dhani, and also helped in the Chandramani Devi during the pregnancy and the delivery of Ramakrishna as a baby, that is Dhani Kamarani. the blacksmith woman, all of them remained mostly with the master during those days of his at Kamarpukur. Those who could not do so on account of their household duties or other businesses used to come in the morning or midday or evening whenever they had leisure. When they came, the ladies brought with them various sweets and delicious dishes and felt delighted in feeding the master, Sri Ramakrishna. We have given the reader elsewhere an indication of how the master, although living in the family at home, surrounded by the people of the village who behaved so sweetly, always remained divinely inspired. It is therefore needless to repeat it here. Sri Ramakrishna paid attention to the performance of another great duty when he came this time to Kamarpukur. What is that? Sri Ramakrishna paid attention to the performance of another great duty when he was this time in Kamarpukur. At first, the master had been indifferent to his wife's coming to Kamarpukur. But now he was intent on giving her education. So we all feel that education means literacy. But Ramakrishna is giving a different education. So at first, the master had been indifferent to his wife's coming to Kamarpukur, but now he was intent on giving her education and training for her well-being. What is that real education? We are dealing with that so many times. What is real education? We'll just have an idea again. What is that real education? Now, Swami Vivekananda expresses education as the manifestation of perfection which is already within man. Swami Vivekananda tells what is education? Education is the manifestation, putting out, manifesting. The perfection which is already within. What is that perfection? Already within. So let us keep this aside. We'll go to another statement of Swami Vivekananda. What is religion? According to Vivekananda, religion is the manifestation of divinity, which is already within. So divinity is already within. Perfection, which is already within, is to be manifested. So if you take up algebraic equations, A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. So the manifestation of perfection, the manifestation of divinity are the same thing. We have that perfection, which is divinity. So manifesting that divinity is real education. How can you manifest? That is to realize which is hidden within you, the divinity, the Lord, the Paramatman. So God realization, going more nearer to Lord, the truth. So what are the scientists doing? What are the man who is educating himself with the fine arts is doing? He's trying to find the truth. What is the scientist doing? Find the truth behind this universe. What is the man in the commerce field doing? Finding the truth. Everybody is after truth. So the real education is finding the truth. And where is that truth? Which is within you, within all of us. So to manifest that is real education. Now we think one of the smallest tool to manifest that is literacy, learning to read and write. Is a very small thing. It's also one of the things. Saraswati is the goddess of knowledge, goddess of education. So the letters, reading and writing, gaining more knowledge is also to please the worship of Mother Saraswati. So now we have to understand Ramakrishna is trying to educate Mother Sharda Devi. But we are all surprised to see that Mother Sharda Devi was not at all literate. Very little could she. And Ramakrishna used to call her avatar of Saraswati, Sharade. She has come down to earth to spread the knowledge. Gnana Vitarite. For Gnana Vitarana, she has come to spread the knowledge to all the living beings. She is Sharada. So now Ramakrishna is trying to give her education. So what kind of education? Is it literacy to write and read Bengali and Sanskrit or some other English letters? No. So master, that is Ramakrishna, who had been indifferent to his wife's coming to Kamarpukur, but now he was intent on giving her education and training her for her well-being, knowing that the master was married. Totapuri's teacher, who initiated him in sannyasa, had said to him at one point, what does it matter? He only may be regarded as really established in Brahman, whose renunciation, detachment, discrimination, and knowledge remain intact in all respects in spite of his wife being with him. I'll read it again. Totapuri, when Ramakrishna told that he is married, so he was about to give sannyasa and give him the highest God realization of Parabrahma Swarupa. So when Totapuri was told that he is already married, knowing that Ramakrishna was married, Totapuri, his teacher, who initiated him into sannyasa, has said to him at one time, what does it matter? He only may be regarded as really established in Brahman. He only may be regarded as really realized or established in the Lord, whose renunciation, detachment, discrimination, viveka, renunciation, vairagya, detachment, nirasakti, and knowledge, gnana, remain intact in all respects, in spite of his wife being with him. He alone may be regarded as having really attained the knowledge of Brahman, who can always look equally upon both man and woman as the Atman, the self, and can behave accordingly. Others who have a keen awareness of the distinction of the sexes and keep away from the opposite sex as a protective measure may be a good sadhaka, but are still far away from the knowledge of Brahman. The above remark of Totapuri came to master's mind and induced him to test his knowledge, and induced Sri Ramakrishna to test his knowledge attained by spiritual practices extending over a long period, as well as to look to his wife's well-being. I shall again repeat what Totapuri had told. When is your highest knowledge of Brahman, the realization of God is you are well established in? When you can look upon in this way, knowing that Sri Ramakrishna was married, Totapuri, his teacher, who initiated him into sannyasa, had said to him at one time, what does it matter if you are married? He only may be regarded as really established in Brahman, that is God, Paramatman, whose renunciation, vairagya, detachment, nirasakti, discrimination, viveka, and knowledge, gnana, remain intact, the same in all respects, in spite of his wife being with him. He alone may be regarded as having really attained the knowledge of Brahman. He alone may be regarded as having really attained the knowledge of Paramatma Swarupa, or God, Brahman, who can always look equally upon both man and woman as the self, as Atma Swarupa, as consciousness. He alone is a person who is well established in God realization, who can look upon both men and women as self, not as the bodies, and can behave accordingly. Others who have a keen awareness of the distinction of sexes and keep away from the opposite sex as a protective measure. Ordinary people like us may be good sadhakas, they may be good spiritual aspirants, but are still far away from the knowledge of Brahman. The above remark of Totapuri came to the master's mind and induced him to test his knowledge. Now we wanted to test his knowledge. How much of knowledge has he gained? After getting the knowledge from his Guru Totapuri and remaining in that Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Satchit Ananda, for 6 months, immersed in that, and now staying in that state of Bhavamukha, where he could see both the Satchit Ananda spiritual plane and this worldly plane, this world, both multiplicity and duality. So now he wanted to test his own knowledge. How much has he gone forward? How much of knowledge has he internalized? How much of knowledge of that Parabrahman or God has he inculcated, or he has put it into practice? So Ramakrishna wanted to test himself. So the above remark Totapuri came, that about Totapuri came to the master's mind and induced him to test himself, test his knowledge. He doesn't rest there just by getting the knowledge. He wanted to test him again himself. Self-test, test himself again and again. His knowledge attained by spiritual practices extending over a long period, as well as to look at his wife's well-being. So we have to test ourselves after going forward in any way, whichever field. Every day we have to test, how much have I grown? Swami Brahmananda Ji Maharaj used to tell, you have to keep a diary and write, what were you? What is the gain you have done today? What were you yesterday? And what are you today? How much progress have you done? So to compare yourself, you should not compare with others, but rather compare about yourself. How much progress have you done? Whatever field you may be. Are you in business? Are you in studies? Are you in some other field? What progress have you done? Whichever, wherever you are. So now it's very, very important in spiritual life and in also other spheres of life. So we have to compare. Likewise, we can see Ramakrishna testing himself. My Guru, Totapuri, had told that this is the real establishment of Brahmagnana, the knowledge of Atman. Now, how much have I progressed? Now he's starting to test himself and putting that into practice. We shall see how Sri Ramakrishna will do that in our next class. But today, we will stop our discussion and we will continue it again on the same thing, that is the visit to his native village and what are the experiences he's undergoing there. The great master will take up that in our next class. Today we will stop at this. If you have any questions about today's discussion, you can ask. Any questions, any doubts?
Hariam Swamiji, it's Kaulan Shetty, Swamiji.
Hariam Kaulanji, please tell.
Swamiji mentioned a lot of things here. One of the things that's of concern was when Sri Ramakrishna experienced the pain when the fellow was walking across the Dhruva grass.
Yeah.
But oftentimes when we're doing puja, we're cutting this grass and we're using it.
Yeah.
How is that justified? That
bare basic necessity for your survival, it will not harm you. Wanton destruction of the nature for my greed, that has to be given up. For my bare survival, until I realize this, Lord, the purpose for which I have come to this world is to realize my true nature. For that purpose, to keep this body alive, if you can use this nature just to keep this body healthy and alive, do whatever it has to be done. But the wanton destruction of the nature for my greed, consumerism, that is bad, that is worst. But see, we have taken this body to realize God. For that, we have to maintain this body. Make use of the nature to that extent. There ends the matter. So it is for the sake of God realization, then it will not harm you. But it is for the destruction and problem and for your luxury and it is for your greed, then you will be incurring sin. That's all.
Thanks, Swamiji. It's just that, knowing that this is the pain that is being experienced by one who is absorbed in Parabrahma, we'll feel the guilt and we'll feel the pain ourselves, and we are cutting the Dhruva grass.
Naturally, definitely it will happen. But for the sake of puja of the Lord, if you give 2 or 3, it is just like you are plucking the fruits. We need not harm that.
Yes, Swamiji. Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Swamiji.
Thank you.
Swamiji, namaste.
Namaste, Pavan Kumar. Please tell Pavan.
Maharaj, it is mentioned that Totapuri gave sannyasa diksha to Thakur.
Yeah.
And is it mandatory for Advaita sadhana to give sannyasa diksha? Or like...
See, it is just like this. Now, Faraday and so many other people, they didn't go through the regular classes and college. He was just doing the work in the David Humphreys library. He was a librarian or looking after the library, binding it. But he was reading about the books and all other scientific researches, and he became a great scientist. Never went to the school. Thomas Alva Edison also gave up his school. So, but he became a great scientist to gain the knowledge. But the generality goes through the path of getting educated through the education system, modern education system, then you get the PhD, then you become a scientist or do all those things. But some people, very rarely, they can get that knowledge even without going through that. I have seen a boy of 13 years or 12 years. He has got PhD in some of the American university, Indian boy. Because of his intelligence and this thing is gained, he need not go through all the other processes because he has so much of knowledge already. So it is just like that. So this is the generality. You have to go through the process of sannyasa. This is the way, just like you going through the master degree and other things. But for very rare people, like Ramakrishna and other people, even without that it can be had. But to set an example, Sri Ramakrishna is going through that structured process.
Okay. So according to Shastra, it is not like mandatory that, only a sannyas, after sannyasi you are qualified for...
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, Maharaj.
It is told that you have to go through that in some of the Upanishads, but even without that you can get it. It can be internalized too. See, renunciation is there. See, first of all, you should know what is the meaning of sannyasa. I've told many a times. Samyak nyasa. So nyasa has 2 meanings, the root word. One is nicely throwing away. Nyas shipane, throwing away, giving up all the worldly, contrary, which doesn't belong to God, throwing it away, giving up. That is one meaning. If you throw away this thing, then you have to play all the other bad things. You have to keep your mind at some place. So another meaning for nyasa is consecration, nicely placing. So nicely placing ourselves, our mind at the feet of the Lord is another aspect, the positive aspect of sannyasa. So throwing away all that which doesn't belong to God and nicely placing at the feet of the Lord, that is sannyasa. So now with this knowledge in the background, so you don't want sannyasa, that means you don't want nightly placing your mind in the God, or you want to enjoy all the world. What do you mean by that? They will not go through sannyasa. Means, what will you mean? You don't want to keep your mind nicely in the God? So if you go deeper into that, yeah. So you have to go deeper into that. We should read between the lines. If we are superfluous, we can't understand these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So because like some of the even householders had a Atma Jnana, so there was like confusion whether Shastra makes it mandatory for sannyasa.
There is having Atma Jnana, not that by enjoying this world and being in this lustful way with all the bad thing he has got it. He too has placed his mind intensely on God, isn't it? If he has placed...
He's as good as a sannyasi.
It is also sannyasa.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, samyak nyasa.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, samyak means very nicely, perfectly. Nyasa means to keep your mind on God. That's all.
It's clear, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Any other doubts?
Om
Maharaj, one
Swami,
small-
again, Swami.
Om.
Swami, does it necessarily mean that you have to be born on this earth to realize God? So if you cannot realize it if you go into another plane, Pitra Loka, those kind of planes where they can somehow pray and reach to God.
Yeah, we can do that. Even you can go do that. Even the gods, Indra, Chandra, Vayu, Varna, they will be also meditating doing that. But because in that world, this Atma Gnana, the Atman cannot be revealed properly. It will be hazy. Only in the human world, you can realize God to the fullest extent. So whether I may be a god, just like Indra, Chandra, Vayu, Varna, I may be Yaksha, Kinnara, whichever world you are, to realize God in a totality, you have to come to this world, earthly existence. This is the Karma Bhumi, and especially India.
Okay, thank you, Swami. That means it's a real privilege to be born as a human. So
Yeah, only in this human world, you can attain God to the fullest extent. There's so much of luxury, so much of enjoyment. It will not let you in those lokas to think of God. It may be just for something in return or to retain all those things. But to perfectly think of God and realize Him, only this human world and do that and human life.
Thank you, Swami.
Yes,
Pranam Maharaj.
Yes, Madhu, please tell.
Yeah, yesterday you said after Advaita sadhana, Thakur came to realize he was the one who was Rama, he was the one who was Krishna. So my question was it not realized? Was he not aware of that before Advaita sadhana?
It was not like that. He would get a glimpse of it, but it became clear completely. The Jati Smaratva completely was revealed at that time. See, sometimes you have a glimpse that you are a great personality, you are one with God, you have done some purposes. But when it is revealed completely, earlier you might have a glimpse. It might come and go, a flash. But when you get a complete view, a complete picture of who you are.
Okay, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or doubts? Okay, if you don't have any questions or doubts, I can close with the prayer. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarvayagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Prishte Jagatrushtam Prenite Prenitam Jagat Harihi Om Tatsat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.